Spider-Man No Way Home single-handedly saves the MCU franchises from its own downfall. Okay, I'm not gonna lie. I've been kind of a Debbie Downer on the MCU since Avengers Endgame. Now, Avengers was great. Sure, there are some questionable elements to it in terms of storyline making sense, but it was a great way to end a 10-year run with all the characters that we had come to love. Phase 4, on the other hand, has been pretty hit or miss. We had Spider-Man Far From Home, which was fun, but not great. Then it was just one string of clunkers after another. Black Widow could have been great, had certain elements of a great political or spy thriller, ended up just being boring trash. You had Shang-Chi, which was, all right. All right. But it certainly didn't knock my socks off. In a lot of ways, it was just like generic Chinese 3D movie. And it's hard to see how exactly Shang-Chi is going to fit into the overall MCU, but I'm willing to hold off judgment on that. And the worst of the worst, the Eternals. I gotta admit, 15 minutes into the Eternals, and I was like, nah, I'm out of here. So I have to say, I didn't have a whole lot of hope for Spider-Man No Way Home. But holy shnikes, was that good! The basic premise of the movie is, at the end of Spider-Man Far From Home, Mysterio outs Peter Parker as Spider-Man. And now everyone blames Peter for Mysterio's death. So Peter realizes he knows a wizard. He goes over to Doctor Strange's place, although Doctor Strange is now not Sorcerer Supreme due to being blipped. But he basically begs the doc to cast a spell where everybody would forget that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. So as Doc Strange is doing this, he mentions, oh yeah, everybody's going to forget. And Peter's like, well, no, I need some exceptions. He wants MJ to know. He wants Ned to know. He wants Aunt May to know. And, well, things go awry because Peter got greedy. Doctor Strange's spell starts pulling in enemies from other universes who hated Peter Parker and have often died at the hands of Peter Parker, but they don't know this Tom Holland Peter Parker. Peter and Doctor Strange get in a little fight about sending them back because Peter wants to try to save them if he can. Well, Doctor Strange gets trapped in the mirror universe or mirror dimension for most of the movie, and he's unable to help Peter. But luckily for Peter, two other Spider-Mans, the Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, also came to Tom Holland's Spider-Man universe. And together, they have to fight what is 5 of the Sinister Six. Now, it turns out that Venom kind of was in the universe for a little bit too. He gets ported out, although a little bit of Venom symbiote stays, so that could be the introduction of Venom for the MCU. But getting back to it, this movie is fantastic. It was well written, it was well acted, well directed, and mostly there weren't political points to be made, and they were very, very respectful of the 2 previous Spider-Man franchises. People grew up on these movies. People loved both Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. Andrew Garfield, unfortunately, his franchise ended after 2, kind of ended early. So there was a lot of unfinished business. And with this movie, they were really able to tie up what happened to the original 2. Tobey Maguire, he's now kind of a middle-aged Spider-Man, and he gives his experience with talking about his MJ and how to manage both superheroing and a relationship. Andrew Garfield, he's still all hung up about Gwen Stacy and how he was unable to save her. And if you watch the movie, he gets a chance at redemption. The best part of this is it really helps out the Tom Holland Spider-Man. Tom Holland Spider-Man has been good overall. The only problem with it is he's not really a traditional Spider-Man. Now, originally in the stories was like Tobey Maguire. Peter Parker was kind of a dick. He was kind of an incel because of his in action, his Uncle Ben, who loved him since childhood, dies. And this affects Peter, and he kind of has to be Spider-Man to try to make up and absolve himself of the guilt for letting Uncle Ben die. In this series, however, there's really none of that kind of challenges for Peter. He's kind of just Iron Man's apprentice. And when Iron Man dies, we kind of see him maybe try to step into that role, although that definitely doesn't work. What we need is sort of this thing, this guilt, this need to be Spider-Man. Because why would he be Spider-Man when he could just hang out with his friends and maybe, do a little something part-time on the weekend? Spoilers, in this movie, Aunt May dies instead of Uncle Ben at the hands of the Green Goblin. And this is what's going to drive Peter in the future. And near the end of the movie, we find him in a rather shabby looking apartment, which looks very similar to the one that Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man lived in. So hopefully, in at least the next two movies, because they've announced that they have ideas for 2 or 3 more Tom Holland Spider-Man, and Tom Holland seems to be on board, that we will get to see Peter play out from his adulthood, trying to get in college while being Spider-Man with no real financial support. How does that work in a new MCU? Now, there's a lot of rumors that since Sony owns the right to have the Fantastic Four franchise, that there may be sort of a character sharing thing with that as well, and Disney for the MCU. So possibly Spider-Man could show up with the Fantastic Four when they introduce them, maybe later this year, maybe next year. No one's quite sure. All right, so Spider-Man No Way Home. Definitely something good to watch. It's fun. It feels like the earlier MCU movies. You could take your family to it. No weird politics. It's awesome. And it sets up the next Doctor Strange movie, which hopefully will be a horror. All right, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, click subscribe. We'll have more content coming soon. And what did you think about Spider-Man No Way Home? Good? No good?